Hey guys, it's Austin Bach, and I'm back once again on Magic Online playing some Pioneer, and once again playing White-Black Auras in Pioneer. And the reason I'm bringing you another set of videos with this deck is because we once again managed to 5-0 a league. We are now, I think it was my third league overall. I went 5-0, then 3-2, then 5-0 again, so I figured I'd go over my latest build with the deck and show you guys the matches that I played to secure the 5-0. So it's pretty much the same list as I played in the last video. I made the updates that I showed you before, adding the Mana Confluence instead of the Swamp, but I made one other crucial addition, which is Brain Maggot. So the old version of the deck was playing Ephemia, but I was actually not super happy with Ephemia. It's kind of awkward. There's never really a great time to put it down. It interacts with the graveyard, which is kind of a nombo with Lurrus at the Dream Den, and even Sentinel's Eyes sometimes. So, like, Ephemia is a good card, don't get me wrong, but I felt like there was gonna be something better for the format that we could play instead, and I believe that card is Brain Maggot. It helps us with one of our tougher matchups, which is the Lotus Field Underworld Breach deck, Lotus Breach. I don't know what percentage of the metagame it makes up, but I think it is definitely the best deck in the format. It's either that or Sultai Delirium, but Brain Maggot, in either case, it's going to be a nice way to not only get information, which is important for this deck when deciding whether to go all in or not, but just strip away combo pieces and slow the opponent down just enough for us to steal wins. So, yeah, I've got 2 in the main, 2 in the board, and we cut, I believe, 1 Knight of Malice, 1 Hushbringer to make room for it, which is more than okay. But otherwise, the deck is pretty much the same as it has been, and I'm going to show you guys the matches I played. So for the first round of the league, we won the die roll. My opponent and I both revealed Lurrus of the Dream Den as our companion, and that's going to be a recurring theme in this video set, and you'll see why soon enough. In any case, we go ahead and... Actually, I'm sorry, we were on the draw, but this is still a keep. And I thought we were going to be playing a mirror, but it looks like we're playing against Mono Black, which is interesting because one of the cards I'm most afraid of in Mono Black is Rankle, but you can't play Rankle when you're playing Lurrus of the Dream Den. In any case, we just kind of play out our hand. Our opponent has a very fast start and removal for our Sram. So let me go ahead and pause here. So at this point of the game, I have to be a little bit concerned about... I mean, I'm mostly just concerned about losing to him having too much pressure. Like here he's threatening 7 power with the potential to make it even 10. So I could have put my Ethereal Armor on the Favored Hoplite here and kind of loaded up onto it and protected it. But I realized that if I'm going to win this game, I kind of need I'm going to need to regain some of my life back. So I decided to load up onto the Alseid instead, leaving out my mana because I already have it big enough to block these 2 things efficiently. And if he plays a removal spell, I can give my Hoplite protection and buy myself a little bit of time, because then my plan would be next turn to play Lurrus and probably put Ethereal Armor onto it. But in any case, I pretty much am just trying to stem the bleeding here. Opponent plays another Scrounger, they have no good attacks. Draw Hateful Eidolon, which is an excellent draw, because that means I can pile onto this Alseid and feel a little bit better about it. And I just dump the rest of my hand. And as it turns out, it looks like my opponent just didn't have another removal spell, and they conceded to my 6 power flyer. And we keep this hand on the draw for game number 2. It's a pretty solid little hand. Got some protection, got some lifelinkers. Start with the Hateful Eidolon, because that's the one we'd rather pile on to. Plays a Siphoner. I drew an Apostle of Purifying Light, which is an excellent draw. So here I decided to attack with the Hateful Eidolon instead of leave it back, because we won't be able to block this Glint Sleeve Siphoner. But I actually don't really want to trade off this Hateful Eidolon. I feel like I'm okay with him taking 2 and then paying life, because we're just going to be able to make a giant pro-black guy that he's never going to be able to answer. So I just want to get in as much damage as possible. I'm okay with him drawing 1 card, because there's really nothing in his deck that can handle an Apostle. Here we just dump a bunch of enchantments into play, hit him for 6. he draws an extra card and then concedes, because, yeah, we just have a 2-turn clock that he can never interact with. And that's kind of what I was talking about with Rankle. One of the reasons we're afraid of that card is because Rankle can make us sacrifice creatures. Obviously, in this case, we had enough extra fodder lying around that wasn't the case, but if Mono Black decides to start playing Lurrus and not play Rankle, I think that makes the matchup a little bit better for us, actually. I'm not sure if that's true or not, but it also means they can't play Murderous Rider, if I'm not mistaken, but then they can play like Hero's Downfall, obviously, so that's like not a huge change, but in any case, we take down Mono Black. And for round 2, as you can see, my opponent once again has a companion. They've got Obosh the Prey Piercer, and if you watched my last video set, you know that we had a very close match that went to 3 games against Green-Red Obosh, and it was it actually looked pretty scary. I think this deck is actually pretty competitive, so I suspect that they're on Green-Red, but in any case, we go ahead and keep this nice little hand. Against Green-Red, basically if you're able to get a creature out of shock range right away, it's really hard for them to keep up. Especially game 1 when they really have no other interaction. Indeed, my opponent is green-red, or maybe green-black, you never know. But yeah, there I just decided to kind of spread the love a little bit, and put enchantments on both my guys, and then get Karametra's Blessing to get this thing through the Steel Leaf. And I think there's like no way he'd be able to get rid of 2 separate creatures, and he does indeed pack it in. Fortunately for game 2 on the draw, we do have to mulligan to 6. But we do get this hand, which is okay. It's a little risky because if he has a removal spell for my Sram, then we're going to be kind of relying on Lurrus or drawing like a 1-drop creature to get anything going, but can't really go to 5, so we give it a shot. My opponent, though, mulliganed to 4, so again, got a little bit lucky there. Well, it just plays a tap land and passes. Go ahead and run out Sram. Plays Collective Defiance. Just play another Sram. It's very unlikely he has another removal spell in his hand. He just plays out the Lovestruck Beast, and now we just get to start piling on and drawing cards. I don't even bother to hold up my Karametra's Blessing. Okay, let's pause here, because that was actually an interesting sequence. So last turn, I played Cartouche of Solidarity and made a 1/1 token, and then rather than putting Ethereal Armor on the Sram, I decided to put it on the token. Kind of split the difference, create 2 separate threats, because I had way more gas in my hand. Just so that if I pile onto the Sram and he's able to chump block it forever. But maybe that was wrong, because I did have this Gryff Spoon, but I don't know, I don't really know what I was playing around, but in any case, we got by Rending Volley, which I didn't even consider as an option, but because it was 4 toughness, I thought it would be safe from the likes of like Bone Crusher Giant and Wild Slash and that kind of thing, and the fact that we just saw Collective Defiance means that that was probably just wrong for a lot of reasons. Anyway, here we just have Exactly Lethal with 12 in the air. So we get that nice little win, even though the opponent milled to 4, so it feels kind of bad, but I think this is just a good matchup in general. So for round 3, once again our opponent has a companion. We're playing another Lurrus of the Dream Den deck. We're also notably playing against Ixodor's Dreams, who is the current holder of the most trophies on the Pioneer Leagues. So I thought that was notable. I actually didn't know that until later, but I looked it up on the leaderboard. In any case, we go ahead and keep this nice hand on the play. Play the Favored Hoplite. And it looks like we're playing a mirror match. We draw a Sram, which is perfect because Sram is the mirror breaker. I also will note that I was a little unsure about which 1-drop to play, because if you're playing a mirror, you generally want to pile on all your enchantments onto a lifelink creature. So I think it's possible I should have played the Alseid instead of the Favored Hoplite on turn 1, but I think possibly because I had just played against a mono-black deck, and I'd also seen that there were like red-white burn decks playing this card. So if I knew 100% that I was playing the mirror, I would have played the Alseid turn 1, but there are a number of decks that can and do play Lurrus, so I think Favored Hoplite is probably the correct turn 1 play. In any case, my opponent looks like they're stuck on 1 land, which is good news, but I do still have to worry about the fact that he has lifelink. I just pile on a million enchantments, attack him for 11. My opponent does find their second land, and they already have a 10 power Alseid, and now they've got the lifelink going. So luckily for me, let's pause. I have the Sentinel's Eyes, but the key thing here is I have the Alseid, which means that I can turn off lifelink from him. And the fact that we have more lands than him means that we're going to get Lurrus online faster than he is. So even though we don't have lifelink going, I feel like we are actually ahead here. And the fact that we have active Sram, obviously, is a big deal. So here we go ahead and just get in. And the reason I did not attack with my Hateful Eidolon there is in case he draws an Alseid, because I want different colored blockers back, just in case. He plays a Cartouche, which doesn't matter. The only thing that matters here is Gryff's Boon, because then that would let him go to the skies and kill me. But I get in with my Favored Hoplite, he just chumps. He does indeed have an Alseid. I just play Lurrus and leave up 1 mana. He plays a Sram. Let's go ahead and pause here. I play Brain Maggot, just because I don't really have any other great options to play this turn. And we'll get a look at his hand. I pretty much just take any aura. And he's actually got a very interesting hand. I'll go ahead and leave it here so you guys can see. He's got Ethereal Armor, which is the only legal option, but it's the card I would have taken anyway. And he's got 2 cards that I don't think are stock in black-white auras, but are interesting, especially considering he's got the most trophies with this deck. But the flyers are annoying, because even if I draw like a Gryff's Boon, this Favored Hoplite is gonna take a long time to get through, so in any case, we take the Ethereal Armor and some nice information. He has to make some chumps. And we just pass with open mana. He has Judge's Familiar, yeah, he drops both of his flyers. We do indeed draw Gryff's Boon. So if my opponent decided to get greedy and play Lurrus there, we could have just killed him. But alas. He finds a Sentinel's Eyes, which doesn't really matter right now. All that glitters also doesn't matter, because I just have infinite blocks with the Alseid and Lurrus combo, giving pro white. Play Alseid. He has to jump with the Cleric. Finds another Sentinel's Eyes, which doesn't matter. Finds an Ethereal Armor, which doesn't matter. And he concedes. So yeah, close one. Even though we didn't have lifelink going, we got the Lurrus engine online faster and punished our opponent's mana screw. So we get to mulligan for game number 2 on the draw. And keep this hand, which is fine, not exciting. I actually accidentally left in all my Karametra's blessings, even though I usually cut all of them, or almost all of them. But anyway, that was an easy choice to put on the bottom, because there's just not very much removal in this this matchup. But we're going to go ahead and try to get Sram going, and hopefully his isn't too insane, but unfortunately he has the dead weight right away. With some follow-up, and yeah, he just decides to go to town on both his creatures. All we can really do is pile onto our own lifelinker and try to race. But when your opponent has active Sram in the mirror, it's usually pretty hard to come back from. Yeah, and this is just, he makes an absurdly large Alseid and just kills me on turn 4. So we go to game 3. And we've got an excellent hand here for game 3. We have 2 pieces of removal, which is pretty rare, and the Sram, plus a backup if he has removal. Can't ask for much more. Just gotta hope to draw some more enchantments off the top to keep chaining spells together. And I'm glad that he played Alseid here. Let me go ahead and pause. Because I did have the decision there of playing Deadweight just to get rid of his threat, but the fact that it's an Alseid and I have a Glare of Heresy, plus I drew a second copy, means that I'm not as afraid of him like piling on 2 things onto it and hitting me for 7 or whatever. So I just decided to get the Sram going. But he does have Deadweight, which is fine. And things work out pretty well for us here because he can't grow his Alseid past 2 toughness, so we just go Sram, Deadweight. And it's unlikely he's got a second removal for our Sram. He just plays his own, which is fine. I was kind of hoping to draw land there because it would have been nice to be able to go Lurrus plus Deadweight in the same turn, but we did have the Glare of Heresy at least. And once again, my opponent piles onto an Alseid and we just kill it. So we don't have a ton of pressure, but my opponent has 0 cards. I've got active Sram, and we haven't played our Lurrus yet. My opponent does play his, and unfortunately I don't get to punish him, so he's going to get 1 free turn with it to try to get something going. But we draw a few enchantments for Sram. And at this point we just try to tempo our opponent out. There's not much they can do except chump, and we've got a giant army. They do pile onto Lurrus. We draw Ethereal Armor, Sentinel's Eyes, and unfortunately for him, with no cards in hand, he has no choice but to chump. And now, with us with an active Sram and him with basically no board, there's no coming back from that, so we take that one down. And now for round 4, we are 4 for 4 on our opponents having companions, and this is, I believe, 3 in a row with Lurrus. Or maybe 3 out of 4, I don't remember if the Obosh came first, but in any case, we're going to have to mulligan this hand and keep this one. And we've got another mirror match on our hands. And already I'm feeling not good because we don't have Sram and we don't have a lifelinker. My opponent's already piling onto theirs. But here I just go ahead and play 2 auras. Do my best to try to race even though I don't have lifelink. But I'm not feeling good about this game. And there my opponent has Sram, but luckily they don't have a follow-up aura, so I do have a chance. I hit him for 9 in the air. Just basically hoping to kill him as fast as possible and see what happens, but my opponent finally starts to draw into some action, hits me for 10 lifelink. Alright, I need to pause here because this is where I had some pretty difficult decisions. But here I played Cartouche, and I believe I just played like Eidolon or something, but planning to just leave back a blocker and hopefully draw something. Sentinel's Eyes would be a good draw here because that would allow me to keep attacking and also hold back a blocker. So yeah, we just have to like cross our fingers our opponent runs out of gas, which is okay. Well, here my opponent just made a serious blunder. This is something I talked about in my last video set with this deck, is you have to be careful with Alseid about what color you name with protection, because my opponent thought they could just name pro-white, so my Favored Hoplite couldn't block, but then all of the enchantments fell off of the Alseid, so a little unfortunate, but that's something you gotta learn with this deck. And then for some reason they put Sentinel's Eyes on the Favored Hoplite, which doesn't really make sense, and then just threw away an Alseid. I think my opponent was just on tilt at that point. And then we just killed them with all that glitters. So a little bit unfortunate, but gotta know how your deck works. We've got a decent hand on the draw for game 2. We don't have a Sram, but we do have lifelinkers and the ability to make them big. So my opponent and I top deck Sram. Yeah, that's pretty lucky. See, the thing about going 5-0 in leagues is you do have to get lucky. You have to play well, but you also have to draw well. My opponent makes a big Hateful Eidolon, which is annoying because I can't kill it with the likes of Glare of Heresy. And Deadweight obviously doesn't do the trick anymore, so I'm going to have to find creative ways to get around that. But the good news is I do have a lifelinker, so I am able to semi-race his Hateful Eidolon, and I have Sram, so even though I'm net losing 3 life a turn currently, for some reason he put Sentinel's Eyes on his warrior, which I think was a big mistake. He should have just kept growing the Hateful Eidolon and giving it Vigilance. And there I just decided to hold back for a turn. And this is a very interesting sequence because so my opponent has no cards in hand, which is notable. They have Lurrus, which means you know, if anything ever goes to the graveyard, that he can just get it back, so I have to be careful of that. My opponent attacks with their Hateful Eidolon, so I actually have a very interesting decision here, because obviously I have to block with my own Hateful Eidolon, but I have to decide whether to just let a trade happen or to use my Alseid to protect my Hateful Eidolon. But if I do that, my Eidolon shrinks because the Ethereal Armor and all the glitters will see 1 less enchantment in play. So, I mean, I'll still gain the life and I won't take lethal damage, but he will keep his Hateful Eidolon. And the other problem is, with what, 5 enchantments on this thing and 3 enchantments on this thing, if both of these Eidolons end up dying, I think we both end up drawing 8 cards, which I don't really want because he's the one with Lurrus already in play. And more open mana, he gets to use his mana first. I think it just makes sense to block and sack. And I do have this backup Alseid, so I'm hoping that in the future, even if I don't get Lurrus online right away, I will be able to use the Alseid. But here I actually have enough power with the Hateful Eidolon that I can hit him for 21, and thanks to gaining 10 life the previous turn... Alright, I need to pause again. It's going way too fast. I was able to just attack, and here I think my opponent made another critical error by attacking with everything, because I would happily trade with Lurrus of the Dream Den any day of the week. Even losing my Sram, not only do I have a backup, but I already got my value out of Sram, and he got no value out of his Lurrus. So I'm happy to make that trade. So now my opponent and I both have 21 power Hateful Eidolons, but now I'm the one with the Lurrus active, and I can just keep hitting him. So he takes 24, I'll take 21, 23 actually. But I'm gaining, at this point I'm out life gaining him, I have the Lurrus active, I have Sram, access to Sram if I want it, so I'm very firmly in the driver's seat, and I actually just have lethal this turn, 31 power. So yeah, that's another black-white Aura's deck down. Alright, and for round number 5, for once our opponent does not have a companion. Psych, of course they have a companion, it's Obosh. So we're 5 for 5, yes, the companion mechanic I think is very broken, and I think Wizard's just going to have to address it, but that's neither here nor there for this video. This is an easy keep. Can't remember if we're on the play or the draw. We are on the draw. My opponent plays a basic mountain, which is interesting because I was expecting them to be playing green-red, which doesn't usually play basics because they're playing Steel Leaf Champion. So my opponent plays a shock. And there, I'm going to go ahead and pause. Because my opponent had 2 open mana, so I had to respect the possibility of removal, but I decided to go for the Ethereal Armor anyway, because if they had a removal spell, I would have Lurrus next turn, and it was slightly more likely that he would survive, and then I could start getting back things from the graveyard. Maybe it was risky, but I feel like it was a good calculated risk, and obviously it ended up working out, because here we just get to make a giant Favored Hoplite, and my opponent appears to be mono red, so there's pretty much going to be no way for him to kill this thing. And as we suspect, the opponent goes ahead and packs it in. So game 2 on the draw is a slightly risky hand because we only have 1 creature, but as I've said in the past, Lurrus kind of makes it a little more tenable to keep hands like this, because even if your 1 creature gets killed, you have a guaranteed other creature coming on turn 3. So I keep this, and obviously if I draw another creature, this hand is perfectly fine. But I will acknowledge that it is risky. In any case, we go ahead and drop the Alseid. The opponent predictably kills my thing, so I'm crossing my fingers for another creature off the top. And we do draw one. Drop Hateful Eidolon, or Favored Hoplite and Ethereal Armor to get it out of shock range or lightning strike or whatever. Unfortunately, my opponent has Rending Volley, which is enough to kill my creature. And here I don't really have much choice but to play my Lurrus and hope that it survives, but he's got another Rending Volley. I could have waited one turn and dropped like my Alseid from the graveyard or something to guarantee that I'd have a creature, even with a removal spell, but in any case, we just run out of time, and I think it's a mistake to kind of sandbag against mono red, because they can just get you real fast, like they did here. I think even if I had waited one turn on my Lurrus, I just would have been too far behind. So we go to game 3. We've got another interesting hand here on the play for game 3. It's definitely a keep. It's a little land heavy, which I'm not thrilled about. I am glad that our creature is Hateful Eidolon, so that if he's got removal, there's a good chance we'll be able to draw some cards and dig for another creature later on. And obviously we've got the Lurrus lying in wait, so pretty easy decision to keep this. But it's definitely a hand that could flood out and have some problems. Opponent does not play a removal spell turn 1, which is great news, because that means we get to drop another Eidolon and a Cartouche, and attack. Which means even if he has removal for the Eidolon, I get to draw 2 cards. But here, unfortunately, we start getting flooded. My opponent has open mana, so I'm not going to play Lurrus, basically inviting them to start casting their removal on my other things. He kills the Eidolon that does not have an enchantment on it, but I still have this lifelink enchantment. And here I draw a Blessing, which is an interesting draw. Here I think I made a mistake. I played the Lurrus, kind of reasoning that I could play the Karametra's Blessing. However, I did kind of suspect that he could have something like Rending Volley in his hand, which this does not prevent Lurrus from dying to. And the fact that my only threat so far had been black, and he hadn't been killing them, meant that Rending Volley was a very strong possibility. So I think I probably should not have played this Lurrus here, because, as you'll see, I get Rending Volleyed. Obviously hindsight is 20/20, but I also think it was pretty telegraphed that my opponent had something like that, so... Anyway, Collective Defiance tries to kill our Hateful Eidolon, and we save it. Could have let it die to draw a card, but... And we draw another Karametra's Blessing, fortunately. My opponent plays another Collective Defiance, and we go ahead and save it. We're just hoping to draw something like, obviously like an Ethereal Armor or something like that would be fantastic, but even Gryff's Boon, that's solid. That means we've got him on a 4-turn clock. We're at a pretty healthy life total. He only has 1 card. We know Obosh is coming soon, and there it is. We go ahead and take 2 from the Swift Spear because the damage is doubled. We draw Deadweight, which was the fantastic draw, because not only does that kill the Swift Spear, but it draws us a card with the Hateful Eidolon. We draw another Hateful Eidolon, and now I'm feeling pretty good, because he pretty much has to kill this Hateful Eidolon now, or we just got him in 2 turns. And even if he does, we've just got we get to draw 4 cards off of it. My opponent plays a Rabble Master, which I think they should have done post-combat, because I just got to gain a free life. I think maybe they thought that the Goblin token would also have double damage, but tokens don't have odd converted mana costs, so I just got to eat it for free and gain a free life. Not that it really mattered, because I was already in the driver's seat. Draw another Deadweight, draw 2 cards, put the opponent to 1, and at this point the game's just over. So I got a little lucky that my opponent was on a very slow draw. They shock me and I get to draw 2 cards. Not that it really matters. I just get to go double Alseid to protect against anything my opponent could have, and then my plan was just to Gryff's Boon onto one of my creatures with double Alseid backup in case, even if he had 2 removal spells, there was nothing he could do. So yeah, we go 5-0 once again. So here is the deck list one last time. If you want to give this deck a try yourself, I highly recommend it. I do think Lurrus and other companions might be in some danger of banning, because this effect is just so insanely powerful. It makes the deck so good, and even you know, decks that normally wouldn't want an effect like this are just going out of their way to make it work for them. I think there was like a super qualifier event over the weekend, and it was taken down by a red-white burn deck that was playing Lurrus, as I mentioned, because it only counts permanents in your main deck, not other spells. So you can still play like Light Up the Stage, Wizard's Lightning, Skewer the Critics, and this still meets the requirement. But in any case, I'll put this deck list in the description as well if you guys are curious and want to try this out for yourself. The deck is pretty cheap to build. I built this for like 40 tickets, and you could even do without the Mana Confluence and that kind of thing if you want to go even more budget, which is basically what I was doing for a while until I started going 5-0 and using my tickets to upgrade the deck. But I think this is, if not the best deck in the format, it's up there. It's like one of the top 3 or 4 decks in the format. It's extremely competitive. It's a lot of fun to play. I'm still having fun with it, even if my opponents might be frustrated. You can get free wins, but you also get a lot of interaction in the close matchups like you saw there. But in any case, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.